Yes.
Okay, great. All right, let's get started on this one. This is our class number 5, fifth class, session we have. Today is February the 3rd, 2024. And the agenda for today's topic is, again, this is, this is a reminder that this is a book that we are following as of now. Hopefully today we will finish this one and then we'll move on to the next one. The agenda for today is there are three processes groups that we have that we will be covering today: executing process group, monitoring and controlling process group, and closing process group. We already covered the initiation process group as well as the planning process group. So most of the people actually fail at the planning phase. That's why we spent considerable time on planning, and we actually had two classes dedicated only for planning. And that's where I'm expecting that all of you need to spend more time in working on that one. Next to the planning, the most important one is execution phase. A lot of time we do complete our planning, but we are not able to actually execute it as per the planning. Or there are some flaws in that we say that, oh, we did not actually anticipate this thing. That basically tells you there are laps in planning, but then eventually, sometime even if you have planning available, you don't have a complete execution plan. And then followed by the monitoring and controlling, which is actually going to go along the way when you are actually working on the execution process groups as well. And at the end, when the project completes, then you have to go into the closing process. So we will cover these in detail. Let's quickly jump on to the one that we have here. Just adjusting my screen. All right, so the first one that we have a direct and managed project work, which is basically, if you look at it, it's considered a very simple concept of what exactly is your role as a project manager into this one. So you are the project manager, and it is your responsibility to direct and manage the project work. The process is this is a process of leading and performing the work and implementing approved changes to achieve the project objectives. That's the whole process is about. It provides overall management of the project work deliverables, because that's the key here, and then improving the probability of project success. Inputs are, if you look at it, pretty much every single process in the planning that we have covered, that is going to be the input of this one. And also prior to that, we did our project management plan, we initiation process group as well. We have enterprise environment factors, organizational process assets. All these are going to be part of this. We will use the project management information system, which means that we are going to be using some sort of project management information system. PMI does not dictate which project management PMIS you need to use. You can use any of them currently that are available in the market. I sometimes use Project Schedule, Jira, ServiceNow. All these are the ones that I'm using right now. So you can pick any of those, and then you can start using them for your overall project management and direction of that.
Brother Go, I have a question. Project management information system, is that like a system to track like schedule, cost, or documents? What do you what does that reference mean? Project management information system.
Good question. So this is basically what we have is, if you look at the very first input, that is a project management plan, any component, this is the project management information system is the one which is some sort of tool we're going to be using to manage that whatever has been identified in our project management plan. For example,
Okay.
you non-automated way tool, and then from there you can use after that any of the automated tools as well. You just use one Word document and one Excel sheet, and in that one you can actually plan everything. You have a project schedule, you can create that one. that you already created earlier, so you have to just track it. What is happening right now on that one. In an Excel sheet, you can see that what is the work, who's doing what work. For example, in the project management plan, we say that we have to have a team, list of team members who are going to be working on our project uh, requirement gathering phase. So you can just document that one, that requirement gathering, who's working, when it is the person is going to be working, and what is the output of that one. So we have that list of that. So in that way, this is a very manual way of doing it. There are project management information tools available, as I mentioned, some of them, but I'm not recommending or endorsing any of those tools here. I'm just saying these are the tools that I use normally, but you can use any of those tools depending upon the availability in your organization if you have. But you can even do this one. You can create a project management information system even within your own by just using a Word document or an Excel sheet as well. That's very simple. Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes, makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Exactly. And the output for this one is we have.
Sorry, one more question I have.
Sure.
So we are right now in the execution phase, right? But I thought the lessons learned register comes towards the after the execution, isn't it right? Because
Absolutely.
that's where you do is more most like a post-mortem, right? Where you get all the inputs.
Right. You're right. The lessons learned register is actually part of the closing phase. However,
Right.
now
Yeah, here you have it input.
correct. So I'll tell you what it is. So when we do the lesson learned, we do the lesson learned for a complete project. We can do the lesson learned for one phase of the project as well. So these processes that we are mentioning over here, we can use any of these processes for the whole project as a whole. I'll give you one example. You have a project of 5 year of duration. Do you want to do the work of 5 year altogether, 1 year of all the requirement gathering, another 1 year of design work, third year is just the build construction work, fourth year is the testing work, fifth year is completely finalizing it? Is anybody has any question? Okay, I request you, if you are not speaking, please go on mute. That would be great. Okay, so if we have a 5 year project, I gave you all these 5 year by year, just a high level. That is one approach to do that. Another approach to do that is you can divide this whole 5 year project into 3 months project each, and then you divide it into multiple smaller projects and start building them together, and then at the end you will have a complete 5 year product that you are looking for, or a complete solution that you're looking for.
So this lesson learned is like small task learnings from the previous task to you just go to the forward next task.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. So this is gonna be, if you choose to do a waterfall methodology, which means 5 year project, 1 year of requirement, 1 year of design development and the testing, then you will have a lesson learned registered only at the end in the last year. But if you have divided it into 3 months project each, and in one full year, you are actually doing 4 projects, smaller components, smaller phases of that one. And at the end of every phase, you have a lesson learned. That's going to be your lesson learned register as well. So you will use that one for your future as well. So if you see that in this ITTO, we have lesson learned registered as input as well as lesson learned registered as output. Can anybody tell me what's the difference between these two lesson learned registers? The one that went in as an input and then one came out as output?
So I'm thinking the one which is input is from a previous step, and the one in the output is after the completion of your execution of that particular stage or what you're doing. what are the learnings which you updated to the one which is at the input?
That is correct. So you will be getting your all the lesson learned. It's an accumulation of that. So you had previous 3 projects, for example, or 3 phases of the project that you did. So that's gonna have lesson learned register for those 3 phases. Once you complete the 4th phase, this one or 4th project, and then you have the next lesson learned, which will have the 4th one, the project lesson learned as well in there. So that would add you more and more details in that one. So that is going to keep on building on top of each other. Any questions about the directing and managing the work? This is a purely the project manager has to do just the managing and directing the work.
One more question, sorry, Wilbhai. So this this document, everything, this planning is done by the project manager, project lead, or it can be done by somebody else for the project manager or whoever the lead is. Can this also be done, or has to be the person who is managing? Is he's preparing his own schedule and this one and we do, or maybe have 2 project managers for the same project? So does that happens?
It does. And the key over here, the key to or to answer to your question is the very first word of this process, that is called direct. So you are managing the work, but you are also directing it. We can create some of the work, and I can ask my assistant project manager to create a project schedule. But ultimately, as a project manager, I am responsible. The buck stops here. Whatever happens, even if it is my team's responsibility to do certain things or not, it is my responsibility as a project manager to take the full complete ownership of this all the work, including the work that is supposed to be done either by me or by my assistant in the project. But yes, you can actually delegate some of the work to other project managers, or else you have an assistant project manager in the project, and then they can do it. Oftentimes, what I have is, for example, I'll give you one example. I was managing a project. It was a $39 million project, not too big. It was for Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. And we had about 66 people on site and 165 people offshore. It was a huge team to manage. I did not have time to actually manage each and every person's work over there. Just imagine that 66 people on site, 165 people out offshore. And then when you actually add them together, you have more than 200, close to 250 people. And can you manage all their work and everything? There's absolutely no way that you can do it. I would actually never recommend a project manager should do and should manage that one. What we did is that we divided them into multiple teams. We divided them and we connected each person over here on site with their corresponding team in offshore as well. And then what we did is that we started looking at the option of, is there a way that they can manage their own individual work? So we had a sub project manager, that each lead was supposed to do a mini project management over there as well. So I was kind of like at that level, I was a program manager for them, because I was looking at all the smaller projects, and then when they all were connected together, we had a full system that was delivered to the ODJFS, which is Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. That's how we do it. So you can definitely do that. And very good question. That's exactly how you should be doing it. You should never try to hold all the cards by yourself. You should learn how to delegate the authority, still keeping the responsibility and the accountability with the project manager. That's the hard part. Most of us are very used to working on our own with our own style, and we don't want to actually delegate the work, because why? We think that it's I can do better than anyone else, which is right, maybe. But if you cannot do all the work by yourself, you have to get some help. And one of the key aspect of a project manager is when you learn how to ask for help. Faisal, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, for this particular project, for 39 million you mentioned, how the comms you as a program manager were sending out to the stakeholders, or there were sub comms going out on a weekly or whatever schedule you guys planned was going out from project managers?
Right.
Because
We will study that. We'll cover that one in our resource planning and the communication plan.
no,
Yes.
I got it. But I mean, since 39 million sounds a pretty big project, so like to avoid any comms conflicts, was program level comms were going out? I'm
We
just
have
asking.
a different lines. So line of communication were different. At the program
Okay.
level, we were communicating. Then at the developer level, we were communicating separately. Then at
Okay.
the SME level, we were communicating that information as well. So we had that different types of communication that we prepared. We will cover that part here today as part
Okay.
of the communication plan.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question, sir.
Mhm.
Yeah, my question is general. Like in construction, most likely beside of the project manager, there is like a superintendent, project engineer, or like quality control engineer or manager. They help for the implementation of the project or like to manage the project. But related to information technology or other aspects, is there any other position like help the project manager to implement the project or to manage the project accordingly, like in other aspects, like related to human related or like information technology related or other?
Good question. So for the first part we did last week, we covered was the planning phase. That's where we actually calculate and see how we are managing this project or how we are planning this project. Not managing. Managing is this phase, execution. That was the planning phase. In that planning phase, we do calculate that how many teams are required, how many resources are required. Then each one of those teams that would require maybe a construction team. If it's a construction project, we would need a team that will gonna be your design team. You will have a team of the IT facilitation as well. What are the IT components that you needed, and you might need a separate team for that one as well. You will be identifying that. So that's your planning phase, and then for each one of them, you will have recommendations. How are we gonna actually execute each one of them? So that planning phase will cover that part. That's why I was saying that most of the projects fail when we don't spend enough time in planning. But when we do, we have all those components already defined in there. The only thing that we need to do, we need to make sure here is all the different components of the project, the reporting and the structure of that one, if possible, they should be uniform. It should not be the case that one team is going with big bang approach of that I'm gonna build everything. I'm gonna spend about two years just collecting the requirements, understanding how it is gonna be working, and then I will start working. And the next team says, no, I'm actually gonna divide it into smaller, manageable tasks, chunks of smaller projects, and I'm gonna start working on each one of those projects and start finishing them every 2 months. That there has to be a uniform approach. That's why all the projects are under one program, so that you can have all of them as one umbrella, under one umbrella. That's you would do.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So managing project knowledge is another process. The next process we have, which is basically what we does is that all the components that we are getting all the project documents. Here, I will be only concentrating on the main inputs that are going to be used. Project documents that are very, very, very important for project knowledge management, and the deliverables. The deliverables is going to tell you that exactly what type of outputs you need. And then you will have some of the deliverables from the previous processes, previous projects that are going to be feeding into this new project as well, or new phase of the project. And Also the other documents that you have prepared over the period of time. These documents are required. And then using that one, and you will have your expert judgment that you will have. You have your own knowledge of the project. You will have your subject matter experts, their knowledge of the project. You have your information management that is going to be supporting you for depending on what type of project it is. If it's an IT project, it is all about IT. If it's a non-IT project and it's a construction project or any building or rocket building or anything, that's a space science project, you need IT as supporting tool for that one. You need that knowledge about that one. Then you have your team skills, how to actually work with them. You have to provide the leadership to them as well. These are the tools and techniques you will use. And then based on that one, what you will do, you keep on adding your project management plan updates. Any components that it's going to be adding to your organizational process assets update. If you notice that this number 5, input number 5, organizational process assets, that was right there from the beginning since the initiation phase. And this is the first time that we are seeing that it's being updated, because that's where it is keep on accumulating. People use different type of tools for that one. I'll just name one of them, but I'm not saying that this is the only tool that you have. Has anybody used SharePoint?
Yes.
That's an excellent tool. I use it all the time. All the knowledge base, all the documentation, we use that. If you have a Mac, if your organization is a Microsoft shop, you can use that tool, and it has a very good management capabilities, all type of designs, documents, collaboration you can do with the SharePoint as well. So that's where we normally in our organization, we keep all our knowledge base over there. And plus it's secure because of the data centers and all that. So that's why we use that one. So that's where it's keep on updating as well when we are managing the knowledge, project knowledge. Any of the resource, okay, before I tell you this one, let me ask you what's the main benefit of managing project knowledge?
Version control, central repository, and tracking and all kind of things. If you have SharePoint, you can do a lot of things. And then obviously, there are other benefits, but these are the key ones.
Correct. These are the key components of the SharePoint, which is a tool. I'm asking about managing the process, manage knowledge-based project that we have. One of the things that we can do, that's the biggest benefit we normally get is if you have a project you must have noticed that if as a leader, as a project manager, you should not be expecting, even if you have a 1 year old long project only, which is medium-term project, and people will come and go in the project. You will have some of the team who started that project may not be exactly the same team who will be finishing the project.
May I say the documentation?
Correct. The documentation is as well. So you maintain the documentation so that any of your new members are coming in, they don't need to go back and then start looking at it and keep asking people what this component is and what is my role in this one. They can just always use the project knowledge base and then come up to speed to start working on this. Another big benefit of this one is once the project is complete, then you will have this as a central repository, as Faisal mentioned. You can use that one for your new projects as well. So that's how you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Very simple example of that one. In the last, just before this session as well, we started, brother mentioned that the templates I provided were really very helpful. That template itself is a knowledge base. So what I did is that any of my projects that I do, if it does not have a proprietary information, I use that, I save them as in my repository, and that I can so that I can use that as my project knowledge for future. You must have noticed that one of the template I used and I shared with you, some actually not one, couple of them that I used with you. They were for the last back in 2012, we used them. So they were like really that old template, but I still have. So 12 years ago, I did use that. I created that one and I used that template, and that is still helpful. And I'm not saying that you don't have to update it. You should always update it. You should always look for improvement or new technology if you can use that one. But having this knowledge base always helps a lot. Okay. Moving on to the next one is manage quality.
Guys, sorry, on your previous slide, I have a question. So if I'm understanding the knowledge-based management you're talking is talking about the knowledge which is in terms of documentation which is preserved. Are we not talking about okay, for the team I have this project I'm doing, how much employees knows about this project and what kind of training and what kind of gaps I need to fill or provide to meet so that this project can execute. Is this not something part of this planning?
That is part of the planning, and that's where we have lesson learned register. So lesson learned register have all that information. What are the different type of trainings? What trainings? What are the initial set of skill set was required? How many additional trainings we needed for this project, and what was the outcome of that one? So we have all that information documented in lesson learned register. And then once the project is over, that whole lesson learned register will become part of, will be added to organizational process assets. So then we have those over there.
Okay, so that all goes into the lesson learned register, that what training plans, and how and when these needs to happen, that goes into lesson learned.
No, the planning is not lesson learned. Lesson learned is going to tell you that what are the trainings that were conducted, why we needed that training, and what was the outcome of that.
That was for the previous project, right? But for current needs, right, there's no identification that what are the strengths, what are the resources available, and what is needed in terms of knowledge and training to accomplish or do this project. That's where is that captured?
Correct. Wait for that one. We are going to come to.
Okay, that's not part of. So here we are only seeing that what kind of documentation we have and how are we preserving, or where all this documentation, all this information should preserve. That's pretty much is done in this
knowledge base. Here we are saying whatever the artifacts, and I prefer to use the word artifact, which means everything. That also includes the training plans, lesson plans, training outcomes, and any other documents that you prepare. So those are all the artifacts that you prepare, and how do you manage them? What is a central repository? What is a protocol to access that? Who will have the access to that? That you do in managed project knowledge. And what you mentioned earlier about the training need, the resource needs, we will cover that one in our managed resources plan. It's coming in a few slides.
Here you're just defining these are all the different subjects where the expertise is needed to do this project.
This is what I'm saying. Here we are covering in managed knowledge is whatever is the knowledge base we have created, how do we manage that? What knowledge base about the project that we have created, where do we store it? How do we store it? Who will have access to that? When will the people will get access to that? We use the example of a SharePoint. So if you are using the SharePoint, you will have, your project might be a confidential project. Only a handful of people might have clearance to actually see that. In that case, we cannot open it for everyone, but we will have to open it for the project teams who are working on that one. So we will manage use certain type of tool saying, okay, here's a SharePoint site, and only these 10 people will have access to these documents. So all that, what's the mechanism of that one? That's what we will be using here.
Got it. I think this explains better to understand what exactly you are doing at this process.
Correct. Okay. Managing quality is what we are doing is that it increases the probability of meeting the quality objectives, and it's basically identifying what are the ineffective processes and cause of poor quality. These are the two main objectives that we have that this process actually gives you. And what we do use is that we use the data and the result from the quality control process that we have. That's the main thing. For this one, we do need the quality management plan that we prepare during our planning phase. We do use all the documents that we have and the knowledge base that we have. And then we use the data gathering checklist we prepare. One of the checklists we discussed earlier during our very initiation phase of the project. Does anybody remember which one was that? That was called traceability metrics. So we talked about requirement traceability metrics, RTM. I shared the template for that one as well with you, all of you. And I was expecting that you will have that, you will use that, either that template or any template related like that to use the requirement traceability metrics, which means that tells you what the requirement is, where it is coming from, who's going to be working on that one, what's the design of that one, and where it is, in which component it is being designed, what are the use cases that will be written to test that particular requirement. So those are the things that we need to have. In this one, what the tools and techniques we use are data representation, which means the graphs, the flowchart, histograms. We will have design for that one. We have problem-solving techniques we're going to be using. We do some quality improvement methods as well. There are a number of, depending on what organizational quality policies are. Some of them I can give you a name is, for example, has anybody ever heard of CMMI processes? It's called capability maturity model process. That's CMMI. It's basically a quality process that we have. So it's called capability maturity model. There are 5 levels of that one. You have level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm not gonna start that discussion here for what CMMI is and what it stands for, what type of quality it is. But basically, in a nutshell, CMMI ensures the quality of the product or the processes at the organization level. So if
I
you,
used CMMI like eons ago, but I thought it was like a dying thing, and people had kind of basically stopped caring about it because it was way too focused on documentation.
that is correct as well. It's way too focused on that, and that's why I'm saying that I'm not gonna start on that one. But CMMI was one of them. That's why very few people now remember that one. But it was actually way more focused on the quality of the work and the processes. And then the tools and techniques they were using or their requirements was that everything has to be documented and documented in a certain way. And then that basically made that CMMI process as very, what we call it, a head heavy. So that was a reason why, that was a drawback of that one, that instead of going too much documentation into that one, why don't we use some other quality control processes? But that was one example I gave you there.
Brother Gul, I wanted to share the quality management tool that we use at work for design projects. Those are like construction design, where we have milestones, and in each milestone of the design, there are a few things that the reviewers need to look for, whether it's the calculation sheets or the scale of the drawings or the chapter about the requirement. And then when you go to 60%, a different set of checks needs to be done. And we need to identify reviewers and independent reviewers, 2 levels of reviewers. One who's in the project as a co-worker, colleague working with me, and an independent outside of the project, basically. Is that considered part of this manage the quality? Is that a process?
Absolutely right. So what I'm hearing is that this tool does two things. One is it does the quality management planning. That's one part. And then the other thing is that it does the quality management tracking, that whether that checklist is completed or not. So that if that does that, that's an excellent example of managed quality. And thank you for sharing that, because I did not have knowledge about that. So that's great. That's one of the tools that you can use for. And as I said, that there are number of tools available. What I normally focus is on the processes and the concepts. Once you know the process and the concept, then it's easier for you to adopt any tool that you have in the market available. You can use that one. So yes, excellent example that we have that one. So there are other tools as well. We use that one. This traceability matrix is one of them that basically tells you the whole checklist of a certain type of requirement. Then you can also use Jira. We use Jira for our IT projects. For that one as well, we have user stories written over there, the requirements defined. We use that one and then trace the whole thing, and then make sure that the quality matrix is complete on that one. One of the things that you can do for the quality management is that at the end of that, when you actually produce, is the quality reports, and then you have test evaluations. Your test evaluations are basically your user, if you are using the use cases. So you have test with those use cases, you create the test cases for each requirement, and your test cases are mapping back to the requirement. So in that way, you know exactly how to test that particular requirement. May it be a construction project, you're making sure that the quality of the road or the bridge that you're building is meeting that particular test case requirement. Or in other organizations, you have a network quality, you have a IT software development, and that as well. You can use that in that use cases for that. So your test team has to be involved with the project, not at the end of the project, but right in the beginning of the project, so that they can start writing the test cases and they can understand the requirements. And based on that, you will, once your development of or the construction is complete, at the end, you will do those testing as well. Any questions?
How would you do a quality analysis of something like a feasibility study? If your project itself is a feasibility study, how does quality come into the picture there?
So the feasibility study basically, and it's a great question, because I'm actually doing it right now. One of my projects these days is we have, I'll give you one example. At one of the county project that we have is what we call it, different divisions have to share some knowledge, some information. And not everyone has access to that information, because they have different type of a security protocols, they have different type of security clearance, and at the same time, some of that information is related to PHI and PII. For those who don't know what that is, the PHI is personal health information, and PII is personal identification information. So if you have any of those, as per the HIPAA laws, you cannot share it with everyone, even within the government organization as well. So biggest challenge that we have right now is what we call it a MAROI, MAROI, multiple agencies release of information. So the IT division says, oh, I need that information, but then the health and human services says, no, I cannot provide you that information. You are IT, and this information has a PHI and PII. You are not allowed to use that one. And then another division says, the housing department says, oh, I need that information because I need to see whether this person has a mental health issue or not, so that I can put them in a right housing facility. And then the other division says, yeah, we can share with you, but we cannot share with you everything. And then the housing department says that, okay, then I cannot share the actual location of that as well because it's a sheriff department requirement. So it's like very complicated thing right now. And we are doing exactly the feasibility study for that. what exactly are we going to be doing it? It's not a development project. It's completely just how to define a process to do that. So one of the things for the quality control, the way we are defining right now is we are defining the all their requirements, asking them to give us the details. We came up with 19 major, what we call it, a use cases. So 19 major use cases from all the divisions within the county. And then we started using them. And then we had one big meeting with them as well. And we said, okay, let's define, is there anything that we have missed out of these 19 as well? So that was a checklist we created. So the checklist was actually that the quality control of that. For each division, they had to even tick mark, yes, it is covering all our requirements, or no, it is still missing 2 or 3 of items on there. And then we have to make sure that the feasibility is covering everything. That was the scope of that, the quality of that scope. And then we were also doing the managing the market research. We went out to see what are the other government agencies are doing. We are talking about one county. There are more hundreds of counties across United States, even within the California. So we are looking at the other counties within California. How are they sharing the information? That's also part of the feasibility report. So though we are just making sure that all those different type of tools we are using and making sure that our checklist is complete before we do that. That's how we are doing it, the quality control of that one. Okay. All right. The main thing that we need to look at in manage quality here is the first two, the quality reports and the test and evaluation documents. These are the two major documents that we prepare. This one as an output, and then the rest of the things are going to be the same that we will have in most of the other projects. Either we will have existing documents that will be updated, or we have a brand new document that we are creating. So that's in the quality control that we are normally doing. Most of the time when we are doing a quality control, we have most these documents already prepared. We just need to see based on our evaluations, based on our test results. If anything has changed, we just add that one and we update those documents. Maybe a baseline needs to be changed in terms of scope. Maybe a schedule baseline has to be changed. Maybe a cost baseline has to be changed as well. So all those things will be updated if required.
So, Brother Gul, this in the outputs in the managed quality, you are putting change requests as your one of the output, right? So change request, I don't remember seeing any project manager, doing typically a change request. So, but maybe educate me in different projects how you guys do the change request. Typically in my projects, project manager just need to know the change request was submitted or the work was captured somewhere. But in your world, probably you may be, able to highlight some more on that aspect.
Sure. Change requests are very common when you're doing a quality control. And I'll give you the exact example in different type of projects. Let's suppose that you are working on a construction project and we started working earlier. We had this the initial requirement of building a room instead of the whole house, and then we said that this room is going to have 2 windows, and then when you put those 2 windows in the house and a door in one room, and that you build, and then that's the understanding of your work, that as a requirement gathering team is doing it. Your business analysts are requirement gathering that information. They will document that one, they'll share that with your design and development team and construction team. And then your quality control will also look at it. And one of the requirement is that your window has to be this much wide and this much tall, and all those requirements are there for the windows. And it says that we need to have 2 windows over there. And when the quality control look at it, they say we don't have a room for 2 windows in this wall. We have only one room, window room in this on this wall. How do we do that? You did not notice that one, that it's gonna be an issue on the paper when you build it. You missed that requirement. Maybe it's your requirement team who missed that one. Maybe it's the design team that missed that requirement. They went in, they actually got that requirement, got it approved by the client, and they said, yep, that's perfect. This is exactly how the type of the room we want to build. And then when it comes to the quality control of that one, and your quality engineer says, oh, you said that it's a 2 windows. There's no way that you can actually put 2 windows in this one, because the total size of this, or this size of the windows, because the total width of this wall is only this much, or this is gonna not gonna be a sustainable solution for the structure of this wall. And again, I'm just hypothetically, I'm using this example of construction. And based on that, you will find out, oh no, we have to change this one. We either have to change the size of this window, or we have to change the number of windows in this room, so that it looks better and it is more structurally solid. That is your change of scope. And if you do the change of scope, what's going to happen is there's going to be a change request for that. That's going to go back to your requirement, and then you start building it based on that. That's one example of that, where you are actually, as a project manager, your team is identifying at the time of when they're doing quality control, they would find it. Sometimes they don't even have to do it when they are actually executing it. When they're writing the test cases for that use case, at that time they will identify that. And they'll say, oh, wait a minute, your requirement says that it's this size of the window, that are 2 windows for this one, and we don't have room for 2. So this requirement has to be changed. Then immediately, even before you do the construction, at that time as well, you can go. So it can happen anytime, either during the planning phase or during the execution phase. But you will have the change request as well at that time.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And this is, I gave example of construction, and I apologize for the people who are in the construction industry if I'm using any stupid examples. I'm trying to use some general analogies instead of going very specific into IT. In IT world, it's very common. All the time, the requirements are misunderstood, and about 80% of the time, or I would say 90% of the time, there are change requests. And those change requests are coming in either during a planning phase, which is always good, when we are creating writing use cases, doing the quality control, we find out those requirements are conflicting with each other. We go back and then correct them. Or sometimes they just still pass by, and then we find those bugs, those issues, when we are actually developing the project. And that happens a lot in IT. Okay. We're gonna pick some pace here, because today we are going a little bit slow, and I'm trying to cover 3 chapters today. All right. Acquire resources. Brother Khadra was asking a question earlier about what are we going to do for when we are identifying who are the people who are going to be working on that one. This is the one. So we have resource management plan we prepared during our requirement phase. During that phase, one of the key aspects we identified is basically, we said, how are we going to acquire these resources? And what is our project schedule? What are the resource requirements? So resource requirements are the one that we define during a project management resource management plan. Basically, what it tells you is this is the bare minimum skill set that is required. And you are the Intel people who are working at Intel right now. You need for a certain type of a position that you are filling up, you need a certain degree. You need a bachelor's degree in a certain field. You don't want a medical doctor to come in and then say, okay, I have a bachelor's degree. Can I come in and work as an engineer at Intel? Maybe, maybe not. But for example, I don't have an electronics engineering degree. And if I just say that I want to go in and start doing the chip designing, I'll fail miserably because that's not my skill set. But I can, and if there is a software engineer that is required in my project and I have a hardware engineer, I cannot hire them, that hardware engineer, even though that person has the undergrad degree or a master's degree as well. So that's basically tells you what are the requirements for resources that we have. We define that one. Sometimes we say that we can acquire those. Sometimes we identify those resources who have a bare minimum information or the training or they meet the bare minimum requirements, but then we identify that there are training needs for them. They need to be trained on a certain things before they can start using it. An example is if we as an organization, we're gonna start using a new tool at our organization. Our project engineers and the team, they are well versed with their requirement, with their skill set that they have currently, but they have never used this new tool. So if they want to use that new tool, you need to give them this training for that tool. So that's a training need that you have. So in order to implement that tool at your organization, you need to provide them that training so that they can start using it. Very simple example is pretty much we all use emails. So Office 365 or Microsoft Outlook. You do need sometimes the training for that one as well. You may have to ask some people, okay, we'll give you a 2-day training of or 1-day training of how to use Microsoft Outlook. And then you can start emailing. That is also a training need. So you do that one as well. So all those documents are going to be used as an input to this process. We use our teams. We can use the tools and techniques are virtual teams, pre-assignments. We do the decision making, which is multi-criteria decision analysis, negotiations. We do that one as well. And then the output of this process is where we are actually acquiring the resources. We have physical resources, they are available. We have the physical resources assignments available. We have, this is what we call it, a boots on the ground. So we do have a boots on the ground that's going to be used, who will be actually working with this one. And if we are going to be using some of the existing team members or existing resources within the organization, we will use that. If we need additional resources from outside, we will use that as well for this. Okay. Now that we have acquired the resources, and what the main thing what we need to do is we need to now develop the teams. Teams means that we need to identify that which team is going to be working. We have to divide our work into multiple type of tasks, and then we have to identify that which team is going to be working on what task. That basically is gonna improve the competencies, team member interactions. It's gonna have overall team environment improvement, and that will basically enhance your project performance as well. The main key component from this one is how the teams are interacting with each other.
So one question, Gulbhai, you're saying develop the team. Develop the team here is basically ramp up the team on the project itself, or if you have if your team is built of resources who already know their work, it's just that you're just forming a temporary team for your project that you borrowed resources from. Then what's the idea of develop the team here then at that point or in that scenario?
Correct. So when you say that the team is already, they know what their tasks are. So at one point in time, you have assigned them some tasks. Okay. So I'll give you one example that if you are building a software, you will need a business analyst for that one to come in and understand the end user requirements. Why do we need it? Because software development is a very technical job. Only the software engineers will understand that. but software engineers would not understand what the end user are asking for. I gave you earlier example of a feasibility study, which has nothing to do with the software development or anything. It's just the multiple agencies, how are they going to be sharing what is going to be the protocol to share the information that has a PII and PHI. If you have those kind of resource needs, what will happen? You will be sharing the information, and we are defining the requirements for that. That's your business analyst. Let's say if you will define over here that depending upon how many agencies are there, we have about 8 or 10 different agencies, you might need at least 5-6 business analysts for that one. If you have only 1 or 2 agencies, maybe 1 business analyst is going to be good enough. That's your requirement team. Then you will have your design and development team as well, who's going to be working on those. So that's where, even though they know what their job is, if you have borrowed them, but they don't know exactly what the specific requirement for this project is. So that's where you will be assigning them the tasks. So your task assignment is going to be done to those projects. So for example, let me ask you this question, that how do you, even if you have a set of people who are going to be working on a project, are you assigning, as a project manager, you are assigning them some task at some stage?
Yeah. Mhm.
Correct. So that's your team development. And when you are assigning them the task at some stage, let's say you tell them that I am giving you this task to complete, and then if that is one person and he or she says that, oh no, this is not a one-person job, we need at least 5 people for this, you will be building a team of 5 then instead of 1. That's where you have to build the team and make sure that they are working. And then that's only one area. Then let's say you have 5 different type of tasks, and all of them have to work together and interact with each other in order to build this complete project. You need to build 5 teams, and then all 5 of them, they have to interact with each other. That's actually the hardest part in team building. When we do the development of the team, you need to identify that how are they going to be interacting with each other, because they normally don't, it's not easy they can work within their own team very easily because everyone speaks the same language, everyone knows the same stuff, but they don't know what the other team is doing. That's why this interaction with the other team is very important. And that's where the project communication comes in very handy, where we are actually communicating with each other. Okay. All right.
Sorry, brother. Quick question. So in the managed team, right, you have this, right, team building and whatnot. No, not the previous one. Sorry. So when you make these plans, do you just say team building, or you go to the details of what all things should be done for team building, or what other things needs to be happening during the course of the project? Or at what level do you define this planning?
So you do need to go into that level of planning at the resource management plan. When you're preparing a resource management plan, you're identifying how many resources are needed, when they would be needed, how the work is going to be done, what is the protocol to share the information, what is the protocol to actually share, how they would work, what are the different type of trainings they need, what is the skill set for each one of the resources required. So all those things are defined in your project resource management plan. When you ask for example, you ask for 10 people for a project and you are given 10 people, then they say, okay, you asked for 10 people, here are the 10 people, go ahead and start working on this. That's where your development of your team comes. That's where you say, okay, out of these 10, the first 2 you work on with the client, the second 2 you work on the communication side, the third 2 you go and work in the IT side as well, and make sure that everything, the IT tools that we need, we have it available. So that's how you divide them. That's you are building it. And then you're saying from each, I have made a team of 2 each, but I'm gonna be, I'm gonna ask you to identify among 2 of you, between the 2 of you, you need to identify who is your leader, so that that person is gonna communicate the status for your task going forward. In that way, you will have team of total 5 teams of 2 each.
Right. So you pretty much form the team, and then those sub teams will have their own manager to pretty much track their task and everything. You're not like doing that at the program management level, right?
Program management level, definitely not. Project management level, yes, it does. However, it depends. If I have a team of 2 each, I don't need one person as a project manager over there. But if I have a team of, just like earlier, I gave you the example, I have a team of 66 people. Yes, I do need a manager or assistant manager in each one of those teams.
And then you will the program manager management will just deal with that manager rather
Correct.
than.
So if you have a 66, for example, for us, we had about 6 teams. We divided the whole 250 people into 6 teams. And for that, I had 6 of their development managers. They all were reporting to me. So they were all giving me the status and everything for those 6, for the whole work that we had. Because it was impossible for me to track work and tasks for all 250 people at the same time. So divided it into 6 teams, then each team was reporting their own task, and they were responsible to do all the project management work for within their own project, within their own team. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So now that once we build the team, what's the difference between the building a team and the managing a team?
I think we were just discussing with the same team, right? From there, you have built the team. Managing is more like taking or tracking their work on day-to-day basis.
Correct. So the very first bullet, if you see that, tracking team member performance, is not just the performance, but also the tasks that we are also tracking. So we are tracking their performance, we are tracking their tasks, and seeing where they are, and then providing them the feedback. So that's what we are doing in this. We just covered this. All right. This is one of the most important tasks a project manager has, which is manage communication. Oftentimes, project manager is an excellent project manager, excellent team builder, but if they are not able to, or you as a project manager, if you are not able to communicate properly the status of your project and at the certain level where it is needed, you are gonna be guaranteed to fail the project. That's the main issue that we have. So earlier, Faisal, you asked a question about what level of communication we do. That's why I wanted to give you in detail answer over here in this slide. If you look at it, we in this ITTO for managing communication is you need a complete project management plan, all the project documents, your work performance reports, your enterprise and environmental factors, your organizational knowledge base. All these things are required to create your, you already created, sorry, you already created the project management plan, but or the communication plan, but you are now executing it and making sure that you are providing using the right technology. For example, if you said that I'm going to be sending out a PDF document, a 1-page status report to everyone via email. So you will be creating that one and sending it out to everyone. So there are a number of levels of communication. I give you one example of most of my projects that I manage. We have our weekly status reports. We have our bi-weekly overall issues and risks and issues meeting that we have. And sometimes we have that one as a monthly meeting. Then we have our monthly steering committee meeting. And then we have a monthly executive meeting as well. Well, not the executive meeting, but also executive reports as well. We prepare that. And all these 4 types of different meetings and the communication, what we do, is there are different level of people that are there. For example, our weekly status report is basically just tells you the people who are going to be working on that project, who are those people who are working, what is their role there currently that they have, and what is this week's status that we have. Then we have a bi-weekly meetings where we actually discuss the issues and overall progress in the last 2 weeks. And then we have a monthly steering committee meeting where we discuss where the project is going in terms of scope, resources, management, cost, and schedule. We look at all of them and see if we are still on track or on time within budget, or we are lagging in anywhere. Based on that, we decide whether our project is green, yellow, or red. And for each one of those statuses, we have a certain type of action item that needs to be taken place. So that's the main thing that we do at the project communication level. So reporting is very important. I cannot emphasize more on this one, that it has to be one of the key skills a project manager needs to have. If you don't have that skill, you need to brush up on your skills and make sure that you write the really concise, to the point, and good project status reports that are needed. And for that one, what you need is, you need the input data. You need the input data from your quality control. You need input data from your resources. You need input data from your any of the change requests that are coming in, any of the schedule delays that you have, any additional cost that is incurring, or anything that is impacting the project that needs to be reported. And they have to be reported at the appropriate level. We also do team communication, which we call it a daily stand-up meeting. In that one, we are actually reporting on a daily basis. And there are only 3 questions we asked. What you did yesterday, what are you doing today, and are there any roadblocks? Just 3 questions. Every person has only maybe 1 or 2 minutes to speak and tell us that what is it that we need to do. Sometimes we do have this only the verbal meeting. Sometimes we do have the notes for that one. We prepare that. But this is what I did for each member, that what they're doing. So that's
doesn't that come under that agile thing? Scrum Master does that, right? The
Yep.
day-to-day
Yeah,
stand-up.
that's called our daily stand-up meeting is part of one of the ceremonies of agile methodology. Yes, but again, this is what we are doing. As I said, that even if you are not using an agile, you may have a different, you call it a different daily stand-up meeting, but you can still have the stand-up meetings. In those meetings, you are actually looking at what exactly are the people doing, and then you can set the agenda. For my agile meetings, I always have the agenda is just these 3 questions, and I ask them that it's a daily stand-up meeting, which means that it should not last more than 10 to 15 minutes max. Okay. So project information that needs to be shared in this one, and the effective information flow. That's very important. And the stakeholders who are there, who will be given this information, they are at an executive level. We have, for example, our monthly executive status reports. They are at a steering committee level, where second level, they are actually sharing it and they are involved in day-to-day activities of the project. And they are at the project team level, where only the internal teams of the project, they are involved. So there are 3 stages of the project. You might have more stages as well. You can define more, but normally we have these 3 stages of the project. And all these meetings and the communication plan, this needs to be, when we are actually preparing the communication plan, that is defined over there, that how are we going to be communicating with the stakeholders. It could be another team member, it could be another your end users, it could be other projects as well. You might need to give a status report to other projects. For example, if let's say a health department has an internal project going on, they need to send out a status report even to the IT department as well, because they need something from IT. or IT needs to do something, certain task as well. So they have a dependency, they need to share that one. That's one example of that. So it could be other people who are interacting with your project, or it could be other projects that are interacting with your project. Okay. Moving on to implement risk responses. We discussed this one last week in detail. I'm not going to go into much detail of this one, that any of the risk management plan, we define the risks, what it is, or identified the risks, and we identify whether it's a risk and issue. Anybody remember the definition I gave you for between the difference between risks and issues, what it is?
The issue is when the risk happens, becomes an issue.
That is correct. Thank you. So issue is when the risk actually occurred. It becomes an issue. Before that, it was a risk. So you have the risk, and when it becomes an issue, then you already have your mitigation strategy or response, as per the PMI term. They call it a responses instead of mitigation strategy. They have those responses for each risk, and then that response has to be executed as well. So that's where you're implementing it. So you have your risk management plan, and you have your risk register, and that risk register has a mitigation strategy or the risk response defined, and that's something that you need to execute it when you are when the risk actually occurred. And that, as a result of this one, you might have additional risks identified. That also we discussed last time. And then those risks also needs to be added to your risk register, and have to go through the same cycle on that. Okay. Conduct procurements. That is straightforward. Most of you already must have handled that one. And procurements, what kind of procurements you have? You can have personnel procurements. You might have to hire more resources, and then that's one of the procurement, because sometimes you just need to go in and send out requisition for hiring someone, and then you hire it. That's covered in your resource management plan as well. But at the same time, in certain cases, you might have to go and send out, especially if you're in a government agency, you have to send out an RFP or RFQ, and then procure your resources. That's one of the things. There could be other type of procurements as well. There might be people who are in the networking. You might need to procure new servers. You need to procure new tools, some equipments. Those are all these things that you need to procure. You need to have that, or the services as well. So you need to have those the procurement process defined. You, based on that one, you will use your requirement management plan to see what type of procurements you need to do. And that's why we are doing it right in the beginning of the project, the procurement management plan. And when the time comes, then at that time we have to actually execute that procurement management plan. So that may need send out an RFP, ask for different bidders to bid on that one. You need to have a bidder conference. You need to do the data analysis. You receive the proposals. You evaluate the proposals. You interview them. You finalize them. Then, and at the end, you do the contract negotiation. So, what is the main component that the output of this one that you have?
By the
Cost will.
Okay,
Go ahead, brother Khalid. You were saying.
procure the product.
correct. The procure the product, but the first two, select the seller who is providing that product or a service, and then number two is the agreement, the contract. Contract negotiation is also very, very important. So as a project manager, sometimes you are not even involved in the procurement part, but it's in the good organizational practice is that the project manager should be involved in the procurement process and the selection process, So because they are the ones who are boots on the ground. They are the ones who are the project manager, and his or her team is the one who's going to be executing that project and completing that project. So they need to be involved in that procurement process as well. So the first two, that you need to have contract negotiation. And by the way, the contract negotiation can also impact big time on what?
Timelines.
Schedule and budget.
Both
Mm.
cost and timeline, yes.
Yeah.
Costing, because you are doing the contract negotiation, you thought that your budget is about $100,000 for this one, and it turned out to be the services or the product you are acquiring or procuring, that is going to cost you $150,000. That will put everything at jeopardy, or you will have to go back and then secure more resources or more funding for this project before you start. So that also is the main thing that you need to do.
By the way, in subscription projects or things like that, I think legal also comes and impacts the timelines quite a bit. So just one data point here, just to
Right.
keep in mind. Yes.
Yep, that's a very good point. So legal department always is involved into that. So where we have to do that. All right. So one of the things that we earlier covered, that was a communication, and then now there's another process called managed stakeholder engagement. These two go hand in hand. One of the main things that we do as a stakeholder engagement is we provide them the regular communication, and then we provide them the update on their expectations. We look at the issues that have been raised, or they are raising any kind of an issue, and we foster the appropriate stakeholder involvement. Sometimes stakeholders want to stay off limit, that okay, I'm just giving you my requirement, come back to me when this is ready. Or sometimes they say, I want to be engaged, I want to know at every stage of the project what is going on, and we will make some certain decisions while we are actually in the project as well. That means they may request some change request as well during the process. And that's why managing the stakeholder expectation is very, very important. And this is not limited to just communicating. This is also the engagement of the stakeholders as well, that they might want to get involved, or you might want them to get involved and then provide some guidance as well. That's why it is very important, this process that you need to do. Any questions on this?
I have a question about like keeping good relationship with working relationship with the stakeholder. This will be also part of the communication.
That is part of the communication. As earlier the word I used, the managing expectations. You need to manage their expectations. So one of the key quality of a project manager is to make sure that you are truthful, you are not decisive, you are not really giving them something that you say, hey, read between the lines. You need to be very clear in your communication, and you are telling them no when you think that is something that is absolutely necessary to tell them no on certain requirements or expectations. So don't promise, or don't over promise and under deliver. I always say that it's okay to under promise and over deliver, but that's also another term which we, on the other hand, we don't recommend. We call it a gold plating, which means don't try to be a hero and then try to uh, deliver something that is not part of your requirement. Because if you do that, then the maintenance of that part of the functionality is going to become your nightmare, or that's your liability. So that's why always deliver whatever is promised, but deliver it in a better way. When I say that under promise and over deliver means that you can say that, hey, I'm anticipating that this project or this part of the project is going to be delivered in 3 months, and then you might end up actually delivering it in 2 months. That's okay. But you still have, so you actually did not under promise, you over promised on that one, and then you delivered actually more. That is quite possible.
But sometimes that's also not good, right? I mean, that means your initial estimates or you projected were incorrect, that you are off by this much, right? I mean,
It is
is it-
quite possible that you are off by this much, or it is quite possible that you kept that as a contingency because you had certain risks which remain as risks which did not occur. So you were adding the contingency for those risks as your buffer. So when you have that one, and you can be very clear that my actual development time is about, or the construction time of this project is about 2 months, and I'm adding another 30 days or 4 weeks for as a contingency for these risks that have
Yeah.
been.
Yeah, so you mean more like guard binding,
Say that again.
more like banding?
You can say that because you are making sure that if those risks actually occur, because those are the risks that have been identified, if those risks occur, then you have room to actually work that one, and that might be part of your mitigation strategy. So one of the response could be that if a risk A occurs, then that will increase 2 weeks into the project duration, and you will add that one as your buffer. That
But why would you do that, right? Because you already have change log. If things like that happen, then you are pretty much more, rather than guard binding. Now this is where this happened, and now your direction or your impact change
I'll
versus.
give you one example. I'll give you one practical example that just happened to us. We had one of our projects that we were working on, and we were supposed to have our very important stakeholder meeting. And that stakeholder meeting was the one that was going to decide which direction we have to go. We did not have any idea that which direction we have to go. So we said that, and the project end date as of now that we have is end of March 2024. What happened that the day that meeting was supposed to take place, meeting started. We were about 2 or 3 minutes into the meeting, and then the fire alarm goes off. Something happened in the building, and then the fire alarm goes off, and then everyone has to. And this was an in-person in that building we were having that meeting. Every person had to just get up and leave the building. We did that one. That one fire alarm actually cost us about 4 weeks of time because it was very key stakeholders. They were at the executive level. We did not have their calendars synced for this project. After that, we were not able to find a slot for the next 3 weeks or so. And since it got delayed by another 3 weeks, that was added. So we did not have that. We did not actually even anticipate that risk. So there was a delay. But if you have anticipated that anything that happened to, we don't have a timing available for these executives at a certain time, and any delay in that decision-making meeting is going to cost us X number of days, there would be a risk. So we will add that one to our project schedule and say that this is our risks mitigation strategy that we have. If the fire alarm does not go off, then we have time.
Like unexpected things happen to the project.
Yeah, that
Like,
was unexpected. That was unexpected, but I'm saying there are few risks you might even expect that as well. And that could be the result, and your mitigation strategy would be, we will then have X number of, this is our next mitigation strategy, or the response to that risk is that we will find the first available slot and then schedule a meeting again. And we will add that time to our risk schedule of the project, not the risk, but the schedule of the project. And that will define the delay on that one. That just happened to us literally about one of the projects that we are working on about a month ago. Okay.
One more general question, Gulbhai. If you're having some issue with the project manager, who are we supposed to inform? Like the project manager's boss or the HR? How does
Depending
that work?
on what type of complaints you have, there are always escalation. That we have a issue escalation process defined in any of the organization. It could be if it's a project related. Normally, you go to the sometime. For example, in my organization, we have an open door policy. I can walk into a CIO office and complain about my boss anytime. Not a problem. And sometimes they say that we have a certain protocol. You can only, for example, if you are in a defense forces, you can only go to the sergeant or the next level of the ranking officer. You cannot go to the general about complaining about a certain person or your boss. So that's one thing. If it's HR related issue, then definitely you have to go to the HR. For example, it's nothing to do with the project, but it has some violation of the HR policies. So those are the things that you need to do. Then you need to go take up to the HR. And every organization has a HR policy defined in that.
Sure, understood. Thank you. One more general question. So, how is the performance of a project manager evaluated? Example, like for 1 year, he has like 10 resources, and the next year also he has same resources, right? So, which means he got done the same amount of work with the same resources with the same budget. So for him to get promoted or something, he either needs to reduce the resources or get work done in less time, something like that, right? So that could be the only way the project manager could get like promoted or something like that, right? Like a senior manager or director, something like that.
Actually, in my organization, I never promote any project manager based on these two.
Okay, I just asked like what else you look
So
into?
for me, the criteria is very simple: on time within budget.
Okay, on time.
On time within budget. So I don't care whether you have 10 resources. You might have a 15 resources the next time.
Plus quality.
You have a proper plan.
Quality, yeah, of course, that's the key.
Yeah. So your quality is the one. You have a proper plan, and you come back to me and tell me that I have a this project is going to take me $5 million to complete, and I would need at least 20 people to work on this. First of all, when anybody says that I need at least 20 people to work on this one, I always ask them to go back and work again, because when you use that word at least, at most, the max, that tells me that you have not done your homework. So I ask them, give me exact number. Either it's a 20 or 21 or 22 or 19. So then they will go back and then they do the math, they'll tell you exactly how many people I need, how much time I need. And I'm not saying that you cannot change it later on. If there is a change request, there is something that changes that you did not cover in the beginning, then yes, you may have to go back and change as well. But when you come back with your requirement, it has to be very, very clear. And so I never expect that if a project manager has 10 people for the first project, and then the second project, they have to get it done with 8 people or 9 people. I say that you need even 12 people for the next project, go ahead and take it. But we need to have a plan. And since when we do the evaluation for that one, for any plan, we actually look at it from all aspects, from budget aspects, from requirements, end user engagement plan, or stakeholder management expectations. We also look at the timeline for that one. We look at the impact on the organization for that, and we'll look at how many resources we have, where is the availability of the resources as well. We look at it from all aspects, and the technology plan as well. And then we do question it. Can you use this technology instead of that technology? Can you go to the .NET versus Java technology in the software development? Why are you using this technology versus that? Why are you using SharePoint and not anything else? Why are you going with the agile versus waterfall methodology? So we do question those as well, so that everyone is very clear exactly what they do. So once they have the answer, once we know exactly this is how we are going to go, then we go to them and say, yeah, that's fine. This looks good, and this looks like that these are the number of people you need. These are the resources you need. This is how much budget you need. Go ahead and start working on that. So we do have, that's where we define it that, remember we discussed ITGC. I gave you some of the templates and the samples of ITGC, Information Technology Governing Council. So
Yes.
we do actually that. So the governance team that we prepare, we do all that due diligence before we even start a project. And right after that, we do, once we go into that, any of those projects, then if some circumstances change, requirements change, timeline change because of those unforeseen things, we can understand that. We can consider that as a change request. But
Sure.
I will this one. That's how I always go. I never ask for them to, oh no, second time you have to improve. But yes, continuous improvement is always a good thing. So for example, a project manager come back to me and say, hey, last time I did a project with 10 people and $15 million, and I found a way to actually get it done with with 8 people, and it's still gonna cost me the same $15 million, or it's gonna cost us $12 million, $13 million, perfect. But we need to look at it. Are we cutting the corners, or we are actually looking at improvement in the process? If we know that, for example, one of the typical thing is that we used an outside agency who actually was doing that, and now we don't have to use that outside agency because we have an in-house product already developed. All we have to do is just use that, repurpose that, and then customize it and use it for our project as well. That will save us about $1 million and 2 resources. Perfect. That's called improvement. That's where I give them their brownie points, that's your thinking on your feet. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Gulbhai. Gulbhai, most of the times, like, if you're starting from scratch, then you have that opportunity, right? But supposing you are plugged in the middle, like things are already existing and like you're hired and like you're expected to manage it. And most of the teams are agile these days. We have like 2 weeks. We deploy the code in 2 weeks, or like, continuous CI/CD thing, like, so and most of the things, like we have a Scrum Master, teams are being managed by Scrum Master, and then a project manager is given like multiple teams, and at that point of time, like, you are just like working on improvement and things like that, right? But this project planning and all this, like, supposing if you are working on a project from scratch, you get this opportunity to build a project plan and like, hire the team like architects and all, and then plan. But like if you're plugged in the middle, and then you really don't have to create like a project plan and then like, uh, start things from scratch, but rather
As a
manage.
matter of fact, sorry to cut you. As a matter of fact, actually, you can still do it. There's nothing is stopping you to go back and look at the plan. You can always look. I remember I mentioned that as a project manager and as a leader, and I have a total different topic of discussion that I have delivered many times before. The difference between a manager and a leader. I think in the beginning of this project as well, we did that one a little bit. That as a leadership, when you have to provide for a project, you need to take control, and now it's gonna become your baby. Once you are a project manager, it's your baby. You have to manage it. You have to own the mistakes people are doing. You have to own the progress of the project. You have to own the result of the project as well. You cannot say, oh, I just came in and then this was the project that was built. I just executed it, which is right. You may have to just execute it. But if you are a project manager, you are asked to take a plan that was created by another project, your predecessor, and just execute that project. That's perfectly okay. You do that. But while you're doing it as a project manager, it is also your responsibility. I would expect you to go back and look at that plan and analyze it, whether that project is the plan has a room for more improvement or not. I'm not saying that plan is wrong. I'm saying that maybe there is more room for improvement that the previous project manager did not foresee because it was a beginning. Now you can see it, or you have brought in some more knowledge base which previous project manager did not have. So whatever you have brought into that, you can use that one.
Thank
That's
you.
what. So you can add that and use that knowledge and go back to your supervisor and tell them, hey, this is the original plan. It's approved and all that, but I have found these opportunities to improve this one. If you are ready to listen to this one, I'm here to present. And that then you also have to present it with what is the benefit of this change. If you say that this is my way of doing it, but it's not going to change anything, they may say, no, let's go continue with the one that we already approved. But if you tell them that, oh, if this is going to improve your performance, improve your cost, improve the quality or the timeline, they may want to listen to you. That's the main thing that we have.
Thank you.
All right. So monitoring and controlling, we're going to go very quickly on this one because it's going to be whatever we were doing. We're just going to be monitoring and controlling the process. It's what we do is that's a tracking and reviewing and reporting the overall progress to meet the performance. That's what we do in this one. We don't have this is not where we are changing anything. It's basically we're just monitoring, and if there is anything that is on our way, any impediments are there, we just remove those impediments. We remove those hurdles from the project so that we can continue to do. Has anybody seen the horse and the cart? And in front of horse, the horse that we always that is actually pulling the cart, that has the sliders who are covering like this. I don't know if you can see my picture or not.
Yes, yes.
They can see like this. They cannot see on right or left. They can only see
Yeah.
from front. That's exactly the monitoring and
In a small box.
exactly. So they can only see in that one. So that's what I always call it a monitoring and controlling. So you are not looking right, you are not looking left, you're looking at straight.
Focus.
And okay, so that's what the overall I always call it, the monitoring and controlling. You're looking at it and what you do. But one of the things that I want to emphasize on this one in this slide is the third bullet in the tools and technologies called earned value analysis. And the process we call for the earned value analysis is called earned value management. This is one of the very key thing that I really love this type of earned value management project management. What it does is that, and I'll give you some template for that one as well if I find one. That is, if you have planned a project and you planned for a project that it's going to take about 6 weeks to complete, and it will cost you, let's say, about $100,000. By the time you are done with the 2 weeks of that project, what percentage of the project should have been completed?
2/6.
Correct.
1/3. I mean,
1/3. So 1/3 should have been completed. 33% of the project should have been completed, and which means depending upon your cost model, not necessarily it is exactly the same, but by the time you are 1/3 of the project is done, your, let's say, 30 or 40% of the cost of, or $40,000 you should have spent. By the time you are, sorry. Okay, so by the time you are done with with 2 weeks, you found out that the remaining work that I have is still not 66%. I was not able to complete it the exactly 33% of the work. I was able to complete only 20% of the work. So I'm 13% behind, which means that the remaining work I have in the next 4 weeks that I have to complete is about 80% of the work. And it's right now I was supposed to burn only $40,000. I end up actually burning $50,000, which is 50% of the cost. What's going to happen here? That's where the project manager has to really come in very handy, when the project manager has to look at it, and you have to do, as part of the monitoring and controlling, you have to project it that, okay, what's my new timeline? Can I still complete it the rest 80% of the work within those 4 weeks, or can I do a new calculation and find out that my remaining work is actually going to charge me another extra week or another 2 weeks. So that's basically, you will tell you that that's going to be your change request. Or at the same time, you also look at it, your cost, and say, oh, I was thinking that it's going to complete within $100,000, and I have only $50,000 remaining now, which means that I need another $100,000 now. So that's gonna add the cost to 150 total.
So, Gul, there is a fundamental assumption here in this example that you're giving, that your project cost or the amount of work done is actually linear, right? Most of the projects it's a bell curve, right?
Mhm.
So if you think about it, it's going to be ramp up slowly, and then right in the middle of the project, your pace is going to be really high, and then you're going to burn your cost or resources very fast, and then it's going to taper down, isn't it?
That is correct. And I'm not assuming that it's linear. That's why I said that you will have to, again, calculate it and find out the remaining 80% of the work that you have. Will you be able to still complete it within the next 4 weeks or not? It is quite possible that having any project off of the ground is the hardest part. So the first 2 weeks you already spent, but you were not able to achieve much. However, you have already got the momentum. Now you can maybe by the time you're done with your calculations, your planning again, and you might find out with your estimations that we are still safe. In the next 4 weeks, I will still be with the current momentum that we have. We will be able to complete it within the next 4 weeks. Or you may say, no, it doesn't look like that I'll be able to finish it within this time. It's going to take me it's going to slip by another week or so. So that the example you gave is absolutely right. And that's why you have to do the estimation right there. That's called earned value management. That's where you report the progress of your project, that the plan versus actual. The plan was 33%. We were able to complete it only 20%. But then you have the projected as well. That projected is the next 66% was supposed to be done in the next 4 weeks. And you can say, as per my projection, the next 80%, which is the actual 80% remaining, we will still be able to complete it within the next 4 weeks. So we are good. So we're going in down, and then we're going to go fast up. That's okay. Or you may say that, nope, it's actually gonna be additional 1 week required. So we are gonna be delayed by 1 week. That's what your earned value management is. And the organizations normally really like those project managers who can do this work, who can do this estimation, and tell them not at the end of the project, oh, by the way, we are late. They can tell you, the project manager should be able to anticipate it and tell the reporter that we are going to be on time, within budget, or late, or if late, how much? If over budget, how much? We have to look at that one. Okay.
I have a question, sir.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Teamwork is very important for the successful completion of the project. If a project manager is very skilled and qualified, but the team is not, and most likely the team is hired and made by HR, is it important for the project manager to be part of the interview panel to assign a better team for this project? Or if the project manager is like come join the project later, or the team like is not working teamwork, so this is also like a kind of failure of the project. What should be
Right.
the method, good practice to apply?
So the good and mature organizations always have their HR department, and the HR department will leave the selection of the resources on the project manager. And you are absolutely right. If the project manager is not able to find, if I go and tell my resource manager, say, hey, can you give me two of the Java resources? And they say, okay, there you go, these two Java resources. And I have no idea what their skill set is. Compared to if I tell them, hey, I need two technical resources, and I will this is the list of the skills that I need. And they send me 10 resumes and say, look at these 10 profiles, and you can let us know which ones you want to interview first. And I will interview them, and I'll tell, okay, maybe I interview 5 of them and say, okay, pick these two out of these 5. That's the difference between the two. And mature organizations always give you as a project manager that chance that you can pick your own resources. Okay. All right. We're gonna cover just two more slides, and then we will go take a break from here. Yes, Wahab, you have a question?
No, I was saying that a lot of time project managers has no say in this whole hiring business. I mean, engineering managers and the organization service owners have their FTEs or contractors assigned, and so I'm like a bit it's new info that project managers are hiring the resources. That's kind of I've not seen that. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It depends on what type of organization it is, or not what type, what is the maturity of the organization. Most of the
I'm talking about the mature organizations where project management managers has no say here as such, So yeah, if a skill set is not there at all, then it is an engineering manager problem. They'll bring some resources from other organizations or other other contractors.
Yeah, I have seen both. I have seen organizations where they just say, okay, here are your resources. Go ahead, project manager, make the miracle happen.
Is it not like hierarchy level? Like I'm a DL, so I have independency to choose the people with different skills what I'm looking for. So like that associate manager. So associate manager will look for the TL, what credibility is required in those TLs. Unlike that manager, and manager will have its own hierarchy, like, okay, I need an associate manager with this kind of skill sets. So now it comes to the project manager. So where he has just consolidate one view of team, like what each individuals is performing in their duties.
Yeah, but in this case, what project manager is doing is delegating its authority to of the team selection to the associate manager. But Faisal's point was different. His point was that even the mature organization are not even giving you as a project manager or an associate manager that choice to choose your own team, which I'm saying I have seen both. You are right, though some of the organization do that as well. And that's where most of the projects do fail, because the project manager has the overall responsibility of the project, and the other teams, they don't the team leads, they are providing the resources, but they're saying that this is the resource, use it or lose it, it's up to you. And then project manager say, okay, that's fine, I'll just use it, whether the person has the right skills or not. Or the project managers may say that, okay, give me this resource, I'll train this resource, or provide this person a training so that he or she has that particular skill set that we are looking for, and then we can use them in the project. But most of the mature organizations that I have seen, they have their HR process, their HR department, or the technical resource pool available. And then they say that when project manager go and tell them that I need 3 resources who have expertise in the networking area, and they provide them, these are the 3 resources, are they good enough? Then you look at their resumes, you talk to them as well, and then you may say, yes, they look good, or you may say, no, 2 out of 3 are okay, but one of them is not, so I need another replacement for that. That's how I have seen more. Or sometime even you might have to even hire an outside contractor for that one as well, contractor or a full-time employee, and people do that as well. It depends that what your organization's policy is on that one. But I always like the way that if the organization is giving that chance for the project manager, because if I am sticking my neck out for a project, because ultimately if a person is does if any of my team member is not performing, it's not, and it is reflecting on the overall performance or the quality of the project. It's not his fault. Ultimately it's going to become my fault as a project manager. I failed, so I need to make sure that I stay on top of it and I do that work. All right,
I
last
have a
thing.
question.
Yes, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Is engineering manager and project manager, right? So what is the relationship? Because can an engineering manager be the project manager, or is project manager a separate role?
Sometimes they do. I mean, sometimes engineering manager, again, every organization is different. To me, sometimes the engineering manager has their resource pool who are working under their a team of skilled people are working under within their organization, and they have a certain skill set, and that resource pool is available. And then the project manager come in and say, hey, engineering manager, I need 2 resources with this skill set from your team, and then say, okay, here you go, these are the 2, they are available.
So
And then as a project manager, I look at it and tell them yes, they're good, or no, they're not good. So but
I'm still a little confused, because sometimes it's very difficult for a project manager to understand all the areas, technical areas, where they might not have expertise. So it becomes a little fishy. So
yeah, so that's the other side of it. That's other side of it. So the project manager again need to learn how to do the delegation of authority, which means that project manager may have to say, ask the engineering manager, I don't know the nitty-gritty details of this or technical details of this particular project. Here are the certain skills that I need. The people who should be able to perform these tasks, that task number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Can you give me your best resources who can do these tasks? And then their project manager will rely on these resources, because then the engineering manager has looked at it and they know the technical details of that one. They know who's going to be working on what, and then they will provide you the resources who are more suitable for that task.
it varies. That's what I can understand.
Yep.
Depending on organization structure and also the project complexity and all that, you might need a project manager as well as an engineering manager to manage the work sometimes. So yeah.
So you have both sides. You have a project manager who wants to do the interview. Whenever I do that project hiring, I always have my technical lead with me. So I judge the person from the certain skills, and then I ask my technical team to look at from their specific task point of view, how good or bad that the resource is, even when I'm picking up the resource from the internal pool. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
The next one is validate scope. Validating scope is very simple, that the scope that we have, where we are just making sure that our scope is, we are still on target and we are still working within that scope or not. We continue to look at that the requirements, how much requirement, what is the overall scope management plan we had, requirement management plan we have, list of the requirements that we have, and you have a use cases, you have user stories, depending upon what methodology you are using, and use that one, and then making sure that you stay within that scope. You don't go out. Once you go out, as I gave you the example of horse and a cart, that if you try to go really tangent, then you come, project manager responsibility is to bring you back and say, yeah, that's perfect, good, nice work, but that's out of scope. Let's work on within the scope. So you do that, and then making sure that you continue to validate that the work you are doing, that is within the scope that you have. All right, we are going to take a break here. We have, I know that a couple of you have to leave, and just get back to me. You can reach out to me this evening. I'll definitely share this screen slide deck and everything with you so that you can cover whatever we missed. Most of the work that in this one, monitoring and controlling, we're gonna go really quickly in this one. So let's take a break, and we will reconvene in about at 4:15. We will start again. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Inshallah.
Can everyone see my screen again?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we just covered validating scope. Now let's move on to the next one is we are controlling the scope. So one of the thing with these two are pretty much interrelated. They are two different processes defined in the progress. But to me, they are pretty much the same that we have, except that we are using the different tools and different formulas to actually finding what is our variance of that one. So for example, when we are controlling the scope and validating that this is the scope that we are covering, and in case there is a change, then we try to identify how much is the change that we have, and is that change impacting something very drastically within that is within the within our variance limit or not. So sometime when we are having any of the changes that are coming in, we also need to look at it if our scope is changing or our schedule is changing or cost is changing, how much variance is acceptable to us. There are a number of tools available. I will at the end of this book, we will have multiple tools, and there are two chapters that are for input and output, and one of the chapter is basically just to look at the different formulas that we have, that you will have to work on that one as well. So we'll discuss that those what are those different type of variants that we have. The simple ones we have earned value, we discussed it. We also looked at it variation analysis as well. What is our trend analysis, whether in the trending, do we have anything that is changing in our trend as well. One simple example is sometime you have an estimation of completion of a project within a certain budget. Over the period of time, the cost of that, your resources have changed. That is going to have an impact on your budget as well. But since when you started this project, you started with a certain with a certain value and the cost, you did not know exactly at that time whether it's going to change or not. So that is where the trend analysis is going to be very handy. You have to continue to do the trend analysis and see if there are more changes that are coming in the cost as well. That's one example of that. So there could be the other reasons as well that you use. Work performance information is going to be your key output in this one that you have, because that whether you are still within budget or on time within budget or not, that's basically defined in your work performance information. Here we are just talking about scope, but then you have other factors as well into that. The similar way that we discussed earlier, the scope, we have the schedule as well. Scope is one of them. Then the schedule, if you have any of those things are changing in your schedule, your timeline is impacted, you have to look at it. We already discussed it in detail about earned value analysis that we do. So you have to do that analysis every time that you are doing controlling and monitoring of the project. You have to look at it whether anything that is changing in terms of cost, scope, or schedule as well. So here we are talking about the schedule. It's pretty much the same thing. The only other thing, that additional thing that I want to emphasize over here is that you have to look at it, the critical path method. Does anybody has any idea what the critical path is? No idea? So the critical path is the project schedule is the longest path on your project schedule. So if you look at your project schedule, you may see that I have 5 activities that needs to be performed in my project. Are these all 5 activities I can start in finish to start relationship that we discussed last time, which means that when you're putting together your project schedule, you need to look at it that all these 5 activities is first activity is completed, and then you start the next one. Then that second one is completed, then you start the next one. Or there is a way that you can start the first one and you are maybe halfway through the first one, and then you can start the second one and use the additional or another resource of that one. And then by the time you are done with the first one, your second one is already in progress. And then by the time you're done with the first one, you can actually put your team who was working on the first task to start the third task as well. Or there are 2 tasks that can be done in parallel, and then you can finish the overall project. Let's say that you have 2 of the first 2 tasks that can be completed that can be started in parallel with each other, and then the second 2 can also be started in parallel with each other. That means that you can start the first 2 together, and then the second 2 together after the first 2 are finished. So your total overall schedule timeline, if each task takes about 1 week, the total timeline for this one is going to be 2 weeks only, even though you are actually doing 5 tasks in that one. So depending upon availability of the resources and your lead and lag time requirement for that how much lead time you need in order to start the next task, you can actually define that one. So the longest path in your project schedule, that is called critical path. So you always need to remember that what is impacting my critical path. So if you even have a delay in any of your project schedule or any of your tasks, but that task is not on a critical path, you're still good. You're still on time because that path is not on your critical path. But if any of the analysis, any of the output of a task that is being delayed is on critical path, which means that it is going to impact the overall timeline of the project. So that's very commonly that we use critical path method to determine when the project end date is going to be. Any questions on this? Nope.
I have a question. Do you have a practical exam of the critical part, like what will be exactly?
I can give you a few IT project examples, but okay, let's use the same analogy if that works better for like building a room with the windows and the door. So you have 3 tasks to do when you are actually building a room, and you're constructing a room. You have to put up the walls and the door and the windows. These are the 3 tasks that you have. Now the doors and the windows, they both have to be built by 2 different vendors, 2 different teams, and the third team is going to be building the walls or constructing the wall of the structure of the room. Can you build the door and the windows even before the
structure?
The structure is built?
No. So like it need to be. Sorry, it need to be like some activity need to be going parallel, and some need to be going prior to start, like both installation, the door or window.
Correct. So there are 2 tasks for doors and windows. Door and window, task number 1 is how to build the door, how to construct the door and the window. And the second task is to install the door and install the window. You can still build the door and the windows separately at the carpenter shop anytime you want. as long as you have the right dimensions, right measurements, right? Even before the
Yes.
whole structure is built, whole room is built, you can still build those two, but you cannot install them. You can install both of them the moment the structure is built and the room is all the walls are in place and the roof is in place. At that time you can install that, right?
Yes.
Okay, now let's take that example. And each window takes 1 week to be built and 1 day to be installed. Okay, so you need 6 days. I'm talking about weekdays. So you need 6 days to build and install the window. Same thing for the door. You, let's say it takes 4 days to construct, to build, and then 1 day to install. You need 5 days for that one. And then you need another 10 days to build the structure and the whole room, all the walls of the room and the roof. So if we add up all of them, 10 days for the walls of the room and the structure, 6 days for window, and 5 days for door. How much is the total time?
5 plus 6 plus 10. So it's 21.
21 days.
Yeah.
Now, can we short this one? What we can do is that we can build the window and the door parallel by different teams, by different carpenters at their shops, and that can be built while the walls and the structure of the room is being built. So we start the walls and the structure of the room to be constructed right away. That's going to take 10 days for sure. But while that is being built, we already have 5 days of windows that has been built, and then we already have 4 days of door that has been constructed as well. So we have that one as well. So now during those 10 days, in the first 10 days, we have the roof and the walls and the structure of the room is in place. And then we have window ready to be installed, and then we have door ready to be installed. So we started door, windows, and construction of the room all at the same time by 3 different teams in parallel. Okay, are you still with me?
Yes.
Okay, now once the structure of the room is ready, then now it's time for us to actually install the window and the door. And let's say that still the installation of the window and the door is done by the 2 different teams still. And so how much time they would take? 1 day each, but they can do both work the installation in parallel at the same time. So,
Yeah.
so
Okay, go
that's
ahead.
your day 11. That's your day 11 when the installation of the window is happening and your installation of your door is happening. And by the end of day 11, you have the room ready with the installation, with the door installed and the window installed. Got it?
Yes. So the question was about like the critical delay or critical path. So
Correct.
what would be here?
I'm coming to that one. Now
Thank you.
let's talk about what your critical path tasks are. So your critical path tasks were your longest path on your project schedule. So longest longest tasks are the construction of the room of the walls and the roof, plus
Exactly.
installation of both window and door. These are the 3 tasks that you have that are on your on the critical path. The rest, construction of the window or the development of the window and the development of the door, these 2 were not on a critical path because you have 10 days to build them and have them ready to be installed. Got it?
Yes. So you mean the longest time period in the schedule should be the critical path.
That is correct. So that should be the critical path. So you finish that one using that. So the longest path is considered the critical path. So instead of now finishing this whole task in 21 days, you were able to finish that one in 11 days. But
it doesn't matter. Sorry, it doesn't matter if it's delay or not delay.
no, this is the critical path is when you did the project planning. So it's already there. Now, whether it's delayed or not, you can see that later on. For example, let's say they say that, well, we were able to actually build the door and all that, but it's going to take us at least 2 days to ship that one, and we are not able to ship it for whatever reason. And if they are not able to ship it and it's going to be delaying it, it means now your installation is being delayed. That is your delay on a critical path. So you need to be worried about if any of your task is going beyond the critical path, or that is impacting the task on the critical path, because installation is impacted because of the delivery of the window or the door. So that's why it is going to be impacting. But if you don't have, if you have it already shipped and all that, or you have the delivery of these two of the door and the window is available, their availability is not an issue, then there is no problem. You will have that one available. And so it's not going to impact the critical path. So you will still have about 4 days of delay in constructing your window, and 5 days of delay in the constructing of your door. That is the room that you still have, and without impacting the critical path, which means that it's still not gonna impact your end date of the project. Your project will still be able to finish it within 11 days instead of 21.
Got it. Yeah.
Got it? So that's the example.
Yeah, it's clear. Okay, thank you.
All right, quality control. Same concept that we have. We discussed it actually in detail, that the quality checklist we have a traceability metrics, and we are making sure that we have all of these. They are actually reviewed and properly inspected, and you are still getting the quality results that you are expecting as part of your test cases evaluations that you have. Then there is no that's what you're doing in your quality control. Your inputs are the same: quality management plan, lesson learned, quality metrics that you have, test evaluation documents that we prepared, and during our execution phase as well. And then your tools and technologies for this one are the data analysis you have, product evaluation or testing evaluation, data representation. Cause and effect diagram is one of the diagrams that you have, that you can say, you can always look at it, that what is the cause of a certain type of a change and what's the impact of that. So you always have, that's what we call the fishbone structure diagram, and you will have that one in the book. I'm not going to go into the details of that one here, because you can just look at all the different type of diagrams that we have available. But this is where you have in the fishbone, you have structure one. On one side you have a cause, which means any of the changes that you have, and then what's the impact of that one. So all that data representation, these are the different tools that you have available, and you can see the result of that. The output of this one is quality control measurements. We have verified deliverables, because as part of the quality control, since we are actually controlling the complete quality, this is going to give us a verifiable deliverables that can be verified. We have a work performance information available using different kind of indicators that we have. If there is any change request as a result of that, we should expect them as well, those changes. And of course, this may require us to update any of our project management plans as well. If so, we just need to update that one accordingly. Okay, the next one we have is control resources. We discussed it in detail earlier, that the resources that we have available, we need to make sure that the tasks that have been assigned to them, are they still performing it the way they're supposed to do. We need to look at it, what is the cost benefit analysis of each one of those resources. We need to do the performance reviews for them as well. We have to see what is their problem solving skill set they have. Some of the resources, they say that we can do whatever you want us to do, but I don't have any problem solving skills, which means that they will do they will work as a worker, but they don't have, and they would not use their own solution or problem solving techniques or anything. So any of the problem that you are facing, that could be in your construction project, development project, as a lead, as you might have a problem in within the other teams, that's a team interaction. You might have a problem which is of technical nature, that could be your design analysis, that could be your requirement team issues as well. Any of those issues that you are seeing right now, those that requires problem solving skills for your team. So you have to look at it, and then you have to do the interpersonal skills in the team, negotiation, influencing to the team as well. So you have to, as a project manager, it is our responsibility to become a role model for our project teams, and be open, be supportive. And if that we see that some of our team members are struggling in order to actually meet their deadlines or meeting the expectations, we need to help them. We have to put them. I normally just reach out to my team member and say, hey, I'm having a little bit of a concern that you are not able to meet your deadlines, or you are not able to meet the objectives. Let's put you on a performance improvement plan, which means that we look at it, and what are the things that are needed. If the person needs more training, we provide them the training. If the person needs some time off because the person is already burned off too much, we can do that as well. And we have to look at it, if there is a way that we can give this person a little bit of a relaxation, so that this he or she can actually relax and come back with a fresh mind, we can do that as well. Things are required for that. All right, any question on this? Brother Afzal, do you have a question? Nope. Okay, we'll proceed. Just like communication, we were doing the managing the communication. Here we are monitoring the communication as well. Monitoring the communication, the main thing is that we are making sure that whatever the things that we agreed during our project management plan, in our communication plan as well, that this is how we will be communicating it, and we are executing it. Then we also need to look at it, that are we actually doing all that or not. If I'm supposed to send out a weekly status report, am I actually sending it? If my status reports are missing, then there should be a way that I should go back to my project manager, or me as a project manager is responsible to make sure that my communication status report that was supposed to be sent out, why it's being delayed. So those are the things. That's just one example of that one. There could be other communication examples. You're supposed to engage the stakeholders and make sure that you have a communication with them. Are you actually sending them the proper communication you need? Is the data you are sending out in that communication, is the correct data that is agreed upon in your communication plan or not? If it's not, you have to make sure that you correct it and send them the right data in that communication plan. So that's basically what you're doing. And what we do is that this is basically during the execution of the project, we collect the data, we convert it into a meaningful information, and then we send it out to our stakeholders and share it with them. Okay. Monitoring risks is one of the key items that we did discuss it, I think last time as well, that how do we monitor risks, and execution of the risk is one thing, that we have, where we are actually looking at the risks, and we look at your risk responses, and we act upon it. Monitoring the risks is that all the risks that have already been identified, how do you know when any of those risks have occurred and they have become an issue? Is there a way that we can do?
What was the question again? I didn't follow.
How do we ensure that the risks that we identified in the beginning are still a risk and they have not become an issue yet?
You continuously monitor them, isn't it?
Correct.
As the project
Exactly.
proceeds.
So you have to set up your team meetings for risk analysis. You have to risk and issues review meeting where every month. So for example, in my projects, I have this cadence in my project governance. I have defined that every month I collect the team risks that we have and make sure that our risk and issue log is updated. And then we have a risk review meeting. And then we go over each one of those risks that are still considered as risks and see if any of that risk has already been occurred or not. If that risk has become an issue, we put it into an issue list, and then we start executing the process, the risk response on that. If it's still a risk and it has not occurred yet, then we just continue to monitor it and see what are the things that are needed for that. That's important to monitor those risks you can have a bi-weekly every 2 weeks on that one, or you can have a monthly meeting as well on that. It's totally up to you. All right. Control procurement. How do you control the procurement is basically looking at your different type of inputs that we have for procurement. We talked about sending out the RFPs. We talked about having RFQs, reaching out to the bidders, evaluating the proposals submitted by bidders, selection of the sellers, and then having the agreements. Now that is when we actually procured it. How do we make sure that it is still doing what it is supposed to do? We need to continue to monitor that one, whatever things, services, products are actually promised or agreed upon in our master service agreement or agreements. And then we use that one to continue to monitor that on a regular basis. That could be your evaluation of that seller. That could be the evaluation of that project on a monthly basis, on every quarterly basis as well. You can do every 3 months, depending upon the duration of the project or the service that we have. But then you need to look at that one. What are the issues, if there are any issues that you're facing with that one? In this one of the main thing is your claim administration. The claim administration is any of the claims that have been submitted against that agreement. So if you have a claim that your end users are saying that, hey, we were supposed to get this kind of service from this vendor or this seller, and then this vendor is actually not providing us the details or providing us the services exactly as per the agreement, then we have to continue to monitor that one. So those are the claims that are coming in. You need to have a way to store them, receive those claims, store them in a central repository, and then take action on that one, even if that action means just investigating it. Sometimes you investigate that one and you find out that yes, the vendor is not able to actually fulfill the requirements, or could be that vendor is still doing everything within the framework of the agreement. So definitely there is nothing else we can do for that. we have to inform that as well. But we have to make sure that we do receive the claim and then process it properly. Okay. All right. Stakeholder engagements. This is the last one that we have in our stakeholder engagements. In this our monitoring and controlling process group. Stakeholder engagement, as I mentioned earlier, we monitor the stakeholder communication, and also communication is one thing and engaging them is another thing. So stakeholder engagement is basically making sure that we do the proper engagement of them with their managing their expectations. So if we have their expectation that they are supposed to be engaging with the team, providing us the input to a certain thing, providing us the budget for certain things, we need to engage them according to that. And stakeholders are also accountable for things, but we at the same time primarily it is the project manager who's responsible for the stakeholder engagement. If we do that properly, then we just have a proper feedback provided to them. We have the communication with them according to our plan that we have, and then we do the proper decision making based on the input we get from the stakeholders. So that will define our stakeholder engagement. Any question on this one before we move on to the next topic? All right. This brings up to the last one, which is a closing process group. And the closing process group is the one that has basically this kicks off at the time when we have all the project, all the activities are already completed. And then we are just finalizing all activities for the project phase or the contract. So one of the brother earlier asked this question that what are the lesson learned? Lesson learned that we have that we talked about earlier, they can be prepared during the process of closing all activities of a project or a project phase, or this could be at the time of the overall contract that we have. In this one, if you look at it, there are a lot of documents, pretty much all the documents that we discussed over the past this planning, actually initiation, planning and executing phase, we have all that. So we discussed that one, and so all those inputs are actually given here. All that are the output of the other processes, but they will be considered as input to this one. But what exactly are we producing at this with this one, the closing of the project? Lesson learned register is one of them. Final product, services, or result transition. Final report, or I call it a closeout report, and that will also update the organizational process assets. Anything we missed here? Do you have any idea that anything else that needs to be added here as an output?
Sorry, I'm just trying to see the output. PPA is your proposed project assessment. Just trying to see that. Final report will be your, where you will put the PPA here, output, right?
What is the which PPA are you talking about, the inputs or the outputs?
Outputs.
The outputs we have is project updates, which is a lesson learned, because lesson learned is one of them.
So that will be PPA, okay.
Yeah. And then we have a final product services, because that's also one of the things that you can, when you close the project, you should have the final services available, or the transition. So one of the things that vaguely mentioned over here, which I always emphasize more on that one, and that is the result transition. The result transition is basically, have you ever heard of the term called knowledge transfer? When one resource leaves a project and the other resource is joining?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the knowledge transfer. That happens during the execution of the project as well, but that is the closing for that one particular resource who's leaving. And that also happens when we actually complete the project. I'll give you one example. I was working on a project about 6 years ago for state of Arizona, and we were contracted to do that. I have a team of about 12 people who were working on that. We finished that project, and once we finished that one, so they said, okay, now you finished it, you were contracted to do that, so you may leave the organization now, which that's how we were supposed to do. So while we were leaving, we started preparing the documentation. We also said that you should have at least one or two people from our team as your permanent resources who can maintain this project, because they have the knowledge of this one. And then we gave them those two resources, and we prepared the documentation. We had the exit interview during those, what we call the knowledge transfer on exit interviews. We did that one as well to make sure that they are comfortable with the project that we built. And that's where we completed it, and we exited the project, and we closed the project from there. So that's one of the things that very few organizations emphasize on that phase of the project, but this phase is very, very important. And if you miss that one, what happens that you miss a lot of information that has been acquired during the execution, throughout the life cycle of the project up until controlling and monitoring from this. Okay, any question? All right. This concludes our process guide. Overall, we have covered approximately 49 processes that we have total. So basically, congratulations, you have pretty much covered all the processes that we had in our process guide. There are two more chapters in this one we have. One of them is the inputs and outputs, and the other one is the tools and techniques. These inputs and outputs and tools and techniques are exactly the same. These two chapters have the same information that we covered throughout these 49 processes that we discussed over the past 3 weeks now, 2.5, I would say. And these inputs and outputs, as a homework, I want you to go back today and just read through these two inputs and outputs and tools and techniques as well. It's basically just a reminder. Will tell you what you have already covered today, and what you have already covered from during your initiation process, during your planning phase, planning process groups, your execution process groups, monitoring and controlling process groups. So all the 4 process groups that you have covered, all those inputs and outputs we discussed, we reviewed, they are here as well. But you don't have to remember all of them. You just need to understand that what is the benefit of each one of them and how they are interconnected with each other. Inputs and outputs especially. Because in order for you to actually pass the exam, you will be tested on inputs and outputs. That's important. And then the tools and techniques are also important because they are going to be helpful in order to understand which process does what and how. But you don't necessarily need to remember all the tools and techniques. You just need to have an overall idea that how these tools and techniques are working. Any question? Nope. Okay. Now there is one more thing that I'm going to share with you. First of all, so this is your homework. We are just trying to finish it like now around, I think in the next 5 minutes or so, we'll end our session. However, you still have to go back. You use the next 1 hour or with the break of a Maghrib prayer, that if you can just go and review these inputs and outputs. And also, in addition to that, I will be sharing with you after this evening one, I call it agile. It's called agile process card, and I will share that with you in that document. It's about 3 or 4 pages long document. And also I will share with you one of the link I have available on YouTube. It's a pretty old video. It's a video that is 1 hour and 2 minutes long in duration. And this video was we actually shooted that video about 10 years ago at UC Davis. So your homework is that tomorrow I want each one of you, when you show up for this class, make sure that you have looked at and watched the whole video, 1 hour. It's boring sometime, but just watch the whole video. That's going to be really helpful for our lesson that we are going to start tomorrow. Read through those the PDF document that I will send you with this one. I'll send both of these as a separate for homework for tomorrow, and that's a prerequisite for tomorrow when you will come in. And then we will start the agile process book. That's the second.
You're going to send the link or something like that for that video?
Correct. No, I will send you the actual PDF, or even if I provide you the link, you can download it as well. So you will have it, the PDF document, as well as a YouTube link to a video that you need to watch. Okay. Any questions before we leave?
I leave a question over there as mentioned in detail.
Say that again. You have a question, bro?
I have a question here I written over there, but I can explain. Like, besides we learning here in the PMP class, like one is like to learn and practice in our daily job who work in the project. But whether for my question is related to pass the successfully completion of the PMP exam. So I mentioned a few of things here, like daily watching the YouTubes. I practice like there was 150 questions. I tried. Most were like familiar, but looks good to me. So if we spend like 1 hour a day to watch YouTube, like answer questions and answers, and also 1 hour for the daily study the all 3 books. And also make some short notes after watching the YouTubes or maybe studying the books, and also at least 30 minutes for our own class, this class, so to be ready in for the exam. So my question is like, what's the good practice based on your experience? And you talked at the beginning, but once again to hear back from you.
Right. Good question. So I actually did mention that one. We need to do a lot of practice, but I wanted to finish the process guide first because if you go in and then start doing the practice without having the base knowledge, you wouldn't be able to even understand that how each one of those processes are working. Or maybe even if you understand, most of the time you will be just answering based on a guesswork. Now that the process that you have covered, that covers 50% of your course for PMP. Remember that in the beginning when I shared it with you, the first slide deck, if you go back and look at that slide deck, that says 50% is coming from the processes groups.
Yes.
And then we have a 42%, 8% is from the
Governors.
From the people side, and the rest of it is from the agile and all that. And so those are the things that we need to cover. Once you cover, now that you have already covered the 50% of the syllabus that we have, and right now we are exactly on track with today is our end of day. Today is actually exactly 5 classes are over, where we have already covered 50%. So I would be expecting you to, if you do your homework for tomorrow that we have, and what I want to do is that now from next class onward, what I want is to allocate some time to start each one of you to just go in, and I will provide you some links, but not for tomorrow. For tomorrow, I have already given you the homework, but after tomorrow, I'll give you some of the homework on, you need to go in, and then some of those tasks, the the practice tests we will do it together, and some of those practice tests you have to do as part of your homework. So more the practice test you do, the better it is, because then you will be able to understand that what each one of those exams, how it would look like. And then we will try to find one full mock test where you will be able to do complete 180 questions in one sitting. But that's something that you cannot do it sitting over here. You have to do it when you are actually do those mock tests and then come back with your result, that how did it go. Then you will be able to do it. But that mock test, the full 180 question mock test, I'm expecting that's going to be probably our second last or last class, not before, after last class that you need to come back. But other than that, we will have all our chapter tests, that the mock tests that we have, that we will be starting it from by end of day tomorrow onward. Any question there?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So YouTube videos are always good. I always say that watch the YouTube videos, do some practice. But my recommendation is more on doing the mock tests than just watching the video. I would say read the material that I'm sending you at the end of every class. Go through the material, do your homework. Maybe if you want to go back, you still have some questions about some of your questions or some of your concepts, you have any questions, go back to the video, watch the video, and see if this is something that clarifies. If you don't, still you can always text me, even on the group as well. You can ask the question and we'll try to answer that either on the group, or we can also answer that in our next class. But that would be more beneficial for you, and then start doing the mock tests. So I will be sharing with you a lot of sites where you can actually do the mock test as well on your own. You don't need me or anybody else sitting next to you to do that. We can do maybe a couple of them in the class, but mostly I would be expecting you to just go in there and then log in and then start doing the mock tests, because that would create your discipline. Watching a YouTube video is going to give you some knowledge base, which you are on anyway. You are watching this YouTube video as well, but the mock test is going to give you the actual, the type of the questions that you have, and also create some discipline in you how to plan your tests.
Okay, thank you. Is there any app in the cell phone like to have like mostly like I use for like the DMU test or like for the naturalization interview? So is there any app for the PMP class?
I'm not familiar with any of the app that we have, but that's a good idea. I'll try to search for one if I can find one. Not sure if there is any, but there are a lot of websites that we have available where you can actually do that. So you can open, if the app is not there, at least you have a website open, you can open their website and then you can start looking into it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Okay, anybody else have any question? Nope. Okay. Please watch out for right now in this 1 hour. I'm expecting you to just read through these last 2 chapters that you have, your inputs and outputs and tools and technologies. And while you are doing it, I'll do my homework. I'll send you the link. I'll send you for tomorrow that you need to watch that video. I'll send you the PDF document that you need to read through. So these 2 things I'm expecting you to read and watch the video, and then come back prepared tomorrow. We'll then start, inshallah, the next book for tomorrow. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, sir.